Hello, gentles and ladymen. I am Ulan Gaming, and I am joined by the ever-complaining Presmaterial.
What's up?
And today we're doing the Skirmisher / Light Infantry / unit that counters Musketeers and Goons tier list. I say all that because we just had like a 10-minute debate about whether or not the Fire Throw and Rumi count as Skirmishers.
Yes, exactly. We're gonna leave that out of it. Maybe we'll do a different video on that.
Absolutely. So yeah, that's what we're doing today. Once again, for the purpose of keeping the list balanced, the B tier is where most of the units are going to be. It is where your average, good quality, absolutely usable, solid skirmisher type unit exists, and then the A and the S are the units that excel, and the D and the C are the units that kind of lag behind a wee bit. And this is taking into account the June PUP notes for the patch that has not come out yet. Sound good to you, Prez?
Sounds good to me. Let's get this show on the road.
Absolutely. Let's start with the actual skirmishers, beginning with the Dutch skirmisher. I would put the Dutch skirmisher in the high A tier, just because it's available in H2 and they have lots of upgrades for them, and that's basically all it needs.
I would generally agree, as well as having a pretty open card upgrade system from the home city. It can get lots of upgrades, and so you get it early. It's a staple of the Dutch army throughout the game, and yeah, it's overall going to be fairly solid. You're not going to see many Dutch players who don't roll skirmishers.
It's also very important to the overall Dutch military because Dutch does not have a musketeer type unit, and they also have an S-class goon in the form of the Reuter. So it works well. That further boosts its position in the tier list because it plays a more important and integral role to Dutch's overall military composition. Let's see. For France, I would put this one in B tier. Now, France does have quite... they do have Royal Guard Skirms. They aren't available till H3, which kind of hurts them a little bit, but they do have Royal Guard Skirms. And they do have a fair few upgrade cards for them. The big issue I find, besides just them being in H3, is that France has a ton of options for military, and I find that when I play against French players, skirmishers isn't always the thing that they're going to want to throw out, because they also have good musketeers, and they have the cuirassiers, which you want a heavy infantry to go with your heavy cavalry, you know. And overall, I just find that it's not always the best option for French, and so just because of that, I'm going to put it in the B tier. What do you think, Prez?
I agree. I would say it's a strong B tier, because I think you could make the argument for an A tier in the late game.
Yeah, absolutely.
And certainly
absolutely.
in a treaty game. In treaty, I'd put it in A tier, but in a regular, attack from the start game, I'd put it in B tier.
Yeah, absolutely. Germany. I'm going to put Germany in the B tier below French. Now, the thing is Germany has Royal Guard skirmishers, just like French. They have the Needle Gunners, but they don't have like any upgrade cards for their skirmishers until H4, which provides them just HP, I think, and just 15% too. So it's not very good in that regard. And on top of that, they need their skirmishers because they don't have a musketeer type unit, and like they have the Doppelsolder, which is really, really good, but you can't always make those just by themselves, and so you need to make the skirmisher, but your skirmisher is kind of lacking.
I agree that it should be B tier. I don't think that you will necessarily always see it in a game with Germany, and I think it has.
Really, I don't think I've ever seen a German player go to Fast Fortress and not make skirms.
I think that, well, I play Germans with cavalry. I think the war wagons are wonderful, wonderful tanky dragoons, which are capable of raiding and holding their own in a fight. So I don't.
Yeah, but you need like skirmishers to go with that for that nice skirm goon, you know. But yeah, I get that. Like you.
It is, but I don't think that you need it necessarily. I agree that it should be in B tier, though.
Okay, yeah. We agree on that
front. Especially because it's in B tier, but I would actually put them a little bit below the French skirmisher.
Yeah, that's why it is below.
Yep.
Okay, let's see. And lastly is the Spanish Skirmisher. The Skirmishers overall are just very solid units, just across the board, which is why most of them are B, and with the Dutch one being A. And I think Skirmisher, the Spanish Skirmisher deserves to be right there with them, you know? Spanish have quite a few upgraded cards. In particular, they have Unction, which is really, really good, which will boost your Skirmishers by quite a bit, you know? And you can't really go wrong with Unction. Unction just makes everything Spain has pretty decent.
The Spanish strength is having one of the most diverse infantry options available.
Yeah, that's very true.
And the skirmishers just really help round out their infantry perfectly. Because I don't know, like, does any civilization get more infantry than, like, the Spanish? I think maybe, like, the Chinese get just as many types of infantry, but, like, it's... Among the European civilizations, the Spanish certainly have the most diverse infantry set.
I think Malta actually have just as many infantry. They have 4 from the hospital, and then they have fire throwers from the.
Right. Well, the Spanish can get grenadiers too. So.
Oh,
I mean,
right. Okay. So yeah, that works out then. Yeah, Spanish does.
I think you have to send a card to get the Spanish grenadier, but you can get it.
Yeah, that's true.
So, when I think Spain, I think any option possible for infantry. You can see anything, and the Skirmisher fills it out pretty well, and it can get upgraded by some cards from the home city, but I usually don't. Like, with French and German, I will send cards to make Skirmishers better. With the Spanish, if I send a card to make the Skirmisher better, it's a coincidence. I'm trying to make something else better.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, that is just Spain's thing. It's just like, we have everything!
Spain, like, I think the Spanish Skirmisher is clearly less good, but its strength is that it's available to the Spanish rather than it's really good.
Exactly. For Wakina rifles, I think I'm going to put these in C tier. These are the Lakota rifles that aren't available until age 3. They have high hit points and kind of low attack. And this is taking the June patch that's not released yet, that's coming up into account, that we have the notes for. And it looks like the devs are trying to push Seton bows on everybody. I think if I'm not mistaken, the Seton bows have a super long range siege attack coming up soon with one of their abilities or something like that. And
you mean Seton Harakas?
Yes, Seton Harakas. And I just don't see too many reasons to actually bring the Wakina rifle over the Seton post-update, just because the Seton are available in Age 2 already, and they're going to have a whole bunch of upgrade cards for them.
And here's something you didn't think about with the Seton bow thing. With the Sioux, with the Lakota, whatever you like to call them, you want to keep your gold available for your ultra-powerful cavalry.
That's
true. And if you have extra food and wood available, you might as well put it into your weaker light infantry, the Satan bow, rather than, waste your gold. Yeah, well, you know what I mean. So that's where I'm coming from with that. So, I'd put the Wakina rifle as low. I guess it'll be really good if you're against a guy who's only doing heavy infantry, but it's not something that you want to say, okay, I'm going Lakota, and I'm really going to build Wakina rifles. It's going to be the core of my strategy. It's just not something that you ever see anyone do. So, for that reason, C, and I could honestly see an argument for D.
Yeah, I could see an argument for D. We might switch it later. If we're looking at the list and we think, it deserves to be D, we'll move it. Yeah. Okay, let's get the 2 very obvious S tiers out of the way. First one being Yumi Archers. Available in Age 2, they have 1,000,000,001 upgrades. They can get an absurdly high amount of attack. They have a good firing animation, and they just shred everything they touch. Really not much else to say about them.
I generally agree.
Yeah, it's as simple as that. And another S tier, the easy one, is the Strellet.
Yeah, and not because it's like good or anything, but because you get like a lot of them for very cheap.
Yeah, the Strellet is has very low stats for even a 1-pop unit, but it has very high stats for how much it costs, which is ridiculously tiny. I think Strelets cost even less than like a Minuteman when you even out all the stats.
Yeah, and So you have to consider
They train in batches of
Russia's
10.
train time. Well, the train batches as well as like the train time. Like you can get those things popped out in a second in the late game if you send all your train time stuff. So they literally spawn instantly.
Yeah.
So that's a huge strength. You know, oh shoot, they're flanking me. Well, I have a blockhouse over there. Enjoy my 50 pop Strellet army. Which you just don't, you know, it's not something you think about when you think about infantry, like light infantry, but it's something that you definitely don't get out of these other civilizations. So, huge strength of the Strellet. Agreed. S tier.
I'm gonna talk about the Otontan Slinger. I think the Otontan Slinger is worse than the Wakina Rifle. Now, the Otontan has is available H2, which is really nice, and it does take the only skirmisher rule for the Aztec. But it seems to have this thing going where it wants to be the Strellet, where it's like got really low stats for a 1-pop unit, but really high stats for its cost, but it's not as cheap as the Strellet, and it doesn't train in batches of 10 like the Strellet, and it's overall just not as good as the Strellet. I mean, it's a little higher in damage than the Strellet. It's, but like it's got the same HP, and if an enemy is making Strelets and you try to make Otontan to fight it, you're gonna lose. And it's really rough with the Otontans. Like they seem like a unit that on paper you would be like, oh, that'd be pretty cool if I amassed a lot of these and then sent all their upgrade cards, but then it just isn't. And then speaking of their upgrade cards, they have just the shittiest fucking upgrade card. They're one of their like only combat cards that they get, which doesn't cost coin. One of just the Otontan combat is locked until age 4, affects only the Otontan and no other unit, and only boosts by 10%.
Yeah, there's a lot of problems with the Otontan, but I wouldn't put it at D tier. I think that if you can get the mass up, you can find that they can take out things that like you don't realize you don't think that they can take out very well. If like the enemy has a bunch of hussars, you get, and I think this is the strength of the Otontan. It's like a Strellet that can get boosted by your fire pit.
And
a lot of people forget about the fire pit, and if you have a good amount of like villagers on like damage, they'll like those Otontan, they'll take out pretty much anything in the early game, especially like key targets.
Yeah. Do you think the Otontan and Wakina should be switched? Because I'd be.
Yeah, I actually do. Let's do
that. I think that's a little bit more fair. I think you convinced me to put it in the C tier here. Okay.
Yeah, so I have some respect for the Otontan, but ultimately it's something that, yeah, you might mass it in the early game, but you're going to transition out of it.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like something for like the fights between 5 minutes and 15 minutes, and like after 15 minutes you probably shouldn't train them.
Yes. That's
unless it's an emergency.
Very accurate. Alright, let's see here. Since we talked about the Wakina Rifle in relation to the Seton Bowman, let's talk about the Seton Bowman next. Where would you put the Seton Bowman? I'm kind of conflicted, keeping in mind the June patch that's coming out.
Look, Sioux infantry all suck.
Right,
it's
but
they're
making
them infantry.
They're making them
infantry at the end of the day. I wouldn't put it any higher than B tier, actually.
Yeah, they are making them a little bit more integral. I think, yeah, maybe B tier, maybe top of C tier would be accurate. They are making them better and a more core part of Lakota's units, and they are available in H2, which I think is a huge bonus over the Wakina Rifle. They also don't suck up, like you said earlier, they don't suck up your coin for your super powerful cavalry. You know,
exactly.
I think there's a lot of points. There's a lot of points going for the Seton Bowman, but it just doesn't have the stats to keep up with a bunch of the other skirmishers in the game. And it has a poor firing animation because it fires at the end of its animation instead of the beginning, just like the British Longbowmen. But unlike the British Longbowmen, it doesn't have a shit ton of range to go with it.
Right.
So on that note, the British Longbowmen. Solid top of B tier, I think, is a good place for this. Available in Age 2, has low multipliers against heavy infantry, but a very high standing and firing DPS, and really, really good range to go with it. There are a lot of things going for this unit. They can upgrade their range to 26, which is just nuts. The British Longbowmen are just very solid. I would never trade these for a Ranger, I don't think.
Yeah, I would put them in A tier personally. Because like I've seen builds with like really
Well,
good
I know
and,
that the
yeah.
A tier and the S tier are going to have a few more units for the skirmishers than some of the other units, so I'm trying to keep everything like centered in the B tier and trying to be like really rough on the units, you know, so that we have a little bit more of a list. That's the only reason I'm not putting them in A tier, because I think like there's definitely an argument for bottom of A at least, or top of B, you know.
Yeah, I'd put them solidly in A personally, but it's your list at the end of the day.
My 2 cents is that they are in A tier because early game Brits with like the only thing that Brits do early game that's better than or that they what am I trying to say here? Early game Brits is either longbows or hussar.
Oh, yeah, Chase is here
Both
too.
of them
He's
are
just
good.
kind of listening in.
So I would put them at A tier personally.
Okay. All right. Well, both of you guys are saying it. I'll put it at A, but the bottom of A. But I'm just saying A and S is going to be really filled up once we get going.
Right.
I actually forgot to do the Malta Longbowmen, but it would definitely be like C tier, because Malta already have like 3 other better skirmisher types, and they are solid for defending in Age 2. There is that. But you can also just make crossbowmen and ship 8 of them without having to spend 500 wood. So.
Right.
Let's see here. Now, we mentioned turning them into rangers, so let's grab the Rogers Ranger for Brits. I'm putting this in C, maybe even D. They're good.
I don't know much about Rogers Rangers. They're relatively new.
So they have slightly lower range than a skirmisher. They have pretty solid attack. They don't have anywhere near as much stand-and fire damage as the Longbowmen, and they don't have the range. They do gain benefit from the Yeoman card if you sent it, or at least they will in the upcoming patch. The problem is that they do have a higher multiplier against heavy infantry, which does make them nice. It requires a lot of investments to get the Rogers Rangers going. And I think you need to be at least Age 3, have also sent the unique church upgrade. There's just a lot of pain and hassle in getting the Rogers Rangers, and what you get out of them isn't necessarily, I think, worth it.
I don't have many opinions on Rogers Rangers. I used them like once. They seemed all right, but you know they seemed like an under-average skirmisher to me.
Mm-hmm. That's fair. That's fair. Let's see here. The Urumi Swordsman. I'm gonna put this in A tier. I fucking love the Urumi, and they are a skirmisher. They are melee. They do range damage at melee with area of effect. It's a really weird unit. They have a lot of HP, and like they can tank an entire Falconet shot and just shrug it off. And they have a lot of siege attack as well for a skirmisher, which is really nice. And if these things get in touch with a musketeer, that musketeer mass is fucking dead in seconds. You can only get these through shipments, which does make them rough. And they do need to close in. They're also not very good against goons, and as I say this, I'm thinking about putting them at the top of B instead.
Yeah, when I think Urumi Swordsman, I think like a Doppelsoldner that has a bonus damage against infantry instead of cavalry. If you can get close in the distance, and usually you don't have too many Urumi Swordsmen at once. They are like mercenaries, right?
Yeah. No, they're shipment only. They train. They do
Shipment
them
only.
for shipments.
Okay, like the Spahi. Yeah, I could have sworn I saw them like in the tavern once. Okay, but
No,
if
they don't
they're-
appear in
if
the
they're
tavern.
I
It's an
could've
India. It's an
must have
India
thought
unique
something
unit.
else.
India does get like some really good Urumi shipments. They have an infinite 9 Urumi shipment in Age 4, and they also have a 9 Urumi and 1 Mansabdar Urumi shipment in Age 4 as well.
Yeah, you really don't want these guys to close the distance. Now, if you have enough damage to like pick them off, you know they won't be that much of a threat. But usually, like when your enemy engages, they're gonna get.
And it's really,
You're
really
not gonna
hard
be able
to
pick
get
all
them
of them
out.
off at the same time. You're
It's
not gonna,
also
like, if it's
really,
if
really
there's
hard
like
to.
one Urumi in like an army, like maybe it can get picked off before it gets to you. The problem is like you can't pick them all off before they get to your army. So
They're also really, really hard to pick off because, you know, they have over 300 HP by the time you use them most of the time, and they have range resistance each.
yeah,
So,
I think
like,
they were
it's
clearly
really
designed
hard
as
to
like
pick
an Indian. Like when I think this, I think they were clearly designed as like an Indian anti-infantry Doppelsoldner, which I think is kind of like
Yeah, that's exactly what they
There.
are. That's exactly what they
Yeah.
are. And they do their job really, really well. I've always been a huge fan of these guys. They play an integral part of my India fast industrial strategy. Alright, let's see here. Let's talk about the Fulani. Solid A tier. Fulani
agree.
are available in Age 2. They have like the fastest firing animation in the game. Like they
so
fire
fun.
even faster than skirmishers, it feels like. They just zip! And they have a ton of upgrades. They can get up to 26 range, just like the Longbowmen, which is really, really funny, because they have, like, the same range as a Yeoman longbow, but they have, like, this incredibly fast firing animation and fast movement speed. They have 4.5 speed at base, I'm pretty sure. And these guys can, like, hit and run artillery. It's really, really funny.
I also want to give them a shout out. Once you send the card, they're the only, I think they're the only unit in the game. Actually, well, with the Europeans, well, they were the only unit in the game that is a military unit that can gather resources, except for, like, naval ships.
Now, there's a lot
Come to think of it,
there's a
there are
lot of
couple
those.
military units.
Yeah, there's a lot of those. Yeah.
But that was, like, their big thing. Like, the European natives now have that one ranger that can hunt as well. Then there's the warships. What else is there that can gather resources as a military unit?
Cuatreros from Mexico, for one thing.
Okay, yeah.
A lot of the Comancheros from a lot. We're getting off topic here. let's get back on topic.
I thought it was an interesting thing to mention, though.
Okay. Now let's talk about the Basigliere from Italy, the new civ. My
Now,
heart
it's
wants
pronounced,
me.
I hate to interrupt you here, but it's pronounced Bersaglieri. The G is silent.
Yeah, I'm not gonna do that. I'm American. I can't pronounce words. Okay.
I'm American, too. That ain't no excuse.
Right, but it's okay when I do it. Now, my heart wants to put the Basigliere in S tier because it has the wonderful horn sound effect and they have brilliant mustaches. But they're an Age 4 Lock Skirmisher that doesn't have the stats to compensate for their Age 4-ness, and they don't have very many upgrades, so I'm inclined to put them at the top of C tier instead.
Oh, no. Like, they're instantly guard units, though. How many units in the game are instantly guard rank?
Right, but you have
that are
to
instantly
get
better
to
than
Age 4 in order to get that, is the problem.
That's an Italian civ problem. That's not a Bersaglieri problem. You can't pin that on the Bersaglieri
But
specifically.
I do have to take into account the civilization that it comes from. That's why we talked about how the French skirmisher is in B tier, because Germany has so many other options for its military.
The Italians aren't so bad that you can never get to industrial age, though.
That's
For me,
true,
a
but
Bersaglieri is going
it
to
still
be high B
hurts
tier
them.
at the very least.
You know, I think just because the fact that they're locked out until Age 4, and then they have good stats, but they're not great guard stats, they're just good guard stats, and they don't have that many upgrades, I cannot justify putting them any higher than the top of C tier.
Well, it's your list.
They are very fast, though, and they have brilliant mustaches.
And
I
they
will
have
say
the
that.
stun. They have a lot of really good stuff going for them. And, like,
Okay, as a
here's the
compromise,
thing.
I'm putting them in C, but
They-
they're S tier in my heart.
here's the thing. They are perfect for your transition to industrial age from the Pavesier, because once you start, getting to the industrial age, the Pavesier is, it starts sliding off, and
Yeah.
you don't need to spend any effort to transition into the Bersaglieri. You just spend the resources, and you're good. You just replace them completely.
And it does have that going for them. But that's also the same thing that every single skirmisher hat can do, but in Age 3.
Yeah. It's
You
the
know-
same thing that the skirmishers do, except it's an Age 4. instead
Right,
of
and
Age
that's
4.
the problem. It's the main reason I'm putting it in C tier.
All right.
Okay, let's see here. Forest Prowler. Previously, I put the Skirmisher in S tier in the first time I did these tier lists. Just because they have they have really good range, they have stupid high attack, they have a decent amount of HP as well, they can go stealth. They're like everything you would want in a Skirmisher. Problem is, they're really expensive, and House doesn't exactly have the best economy. So now I'm inclined to put them in A tier with the Dutch Skirmisher.
I think that's fair. I think people overestimated how good the Forest Prowler was before. I think they're still Is that fair to say they're probably the best Native American skirmisher?
Considering their competition is the Jungle Bowmen from Inca, the Seton and Wakina from Lakota, and the Ottoman from Aztec. Yeah, they're the best. They're the best native skirm.
The only way they could be S tier is if there were only Native American civs in the game. You do that, the Forest Prowler goes right up to S tier. But without that, A tier, definitely.
All right. Well, while we're on the topic of natives, let's talk about the Jungle Bowmen. I like the Jungle Bowman. I think it's a good unit. It has the poison damage allows it to counter, well, not counter, but like fight reasonably well against its counters, things like cavalry and even artillery to some extent. So I think it's got a lot going for it. It's got a good firing animation, solid damage available in H2. Like it's a really good unit. I don't think it's the best skirmisher out there, but I think I want to put it at the top of B tier. Same place as the Arumi and like the other skirmishers.
I think I agree.
It's available in H2, which is a big bonus.
When you're playing as... Okay, I agree with you, but I want to put this in. When you're playing as Incans, it almost feels like A tier. It's like, for me, it's almost deceptively good.
Yes, it is.
Then,
it is good. It's very good.
Yeah. But, yeah, I think you placed it properly. But it feels really good when you're playing with Jungle Bowmen and Incans.
Yeah, it does.
I think it feels better than playing with, like, the Skirmishers and everything else.
They don't have as much range as the Skirmisher, which does kind of suck, though. Alright, let's throw in just another unit into the B tier, the Gurkha. I don't see why everybody complains about the Gurkha. The Gurkha is not super upgradable. It requires a whole ass shipment in order to get its counter-infantry rifling multiplier. It has... really, its primary upgrade comes from just the Mansubdar, and other than that, it is just basically a standard skirmisher, but available in H2. That's all. That's all it is. You know? I think you even have to upgrade... it doesn't even shadow tech to H3. Now, just because it's available in H2, and it's really good at what it does, I want to put it in B. But, like, I don't think it's some crazy unit that everybody thinks it is.
If it's shadow tech, maybe it could be A tier. But I agree. I think B tier... but because I mean, like, let's think about it. How much of a difference is there between the Gurkha and the Skirmisher? You need the
basically none.
Rifling with a skit. Yeah, the thing is, like, the big distinguishing factor is what you said about it does not get its veteran upgrade for free.
Right, but it also is available in H2, and that's not something the standard Skirmisher can say unless you're Dutch.
Yep.
And it's got that going for it, you know. But the Dutch one is available in H2 and Shadow Tex, and that's just super good.
Exactly. Because, like, you'll build up a mass in H2, and then they're fully upgraded, and you don't have to waste time on a barracks upgrading it. So, you know, it's much better for timing pushes.
Yeah, exactly.
Whereas the Gurkha, you know, you're gonna get to Fortress Age, they'll know you're coming for them. So with the Dutch, you can do like a really big power spike that's unexpected by your enemy. With the Gurkha, it's a little harder. So yeah, they're worse than the Dutch Skirmisher, I'd say.
Alright, the Aena, the Haudenosaunee H2 Skirmisher. I'm inclined to put it at the top of C tier. Now, it does have a couple things going for it. It is available in H2, and it also only costs food, which is really, really nice. It goes really well with like a livestock boom. Problem is, its stats just aren't super great. That's it. And once you get to H3, there's like no reason to ever make these over the Forest Prowler.
I agree. I would put it lower than that. I'd put it in D tier.
Really?
I mean,
okay. I think there's some merit. I think there's some merit because I have seen some Haudenosaunee players make really good use out of pure Aena pushes.
Yeah, and I'm not one of those Haudenosaunee players. I've tried a lot of things to make the Haudenosaunee work, and
for the reason that like you can make a pure Aena push, it deserves to be a good tier higher than the Ranger and the Wakina rifle. You know,
I can agree with that. I'm not a fan of the Aena. I'll mostly want Forest Prowlers in my army. I'll mostly want Tomahawks as my infantry or Forest Prowlers. Aena, it's something that's really awkward to play with. It's not something that you do very well unless you plan it out way ahead of time.
Yeah. Alright, so with that, I think we have all of the native skirmishers out of the way. That's cool. Let's talk about the Jaeger. Now, I put this here. This is specifically the Swedish Jaeger, available to the Swedes, because the Jaeger is the Swedish stand-in for the skirmisher, essentially. I'd put it in D, straight up. They're really expensive. You have to wait until age 3 or age 4 in order to get a shipment that allows you to train them. Now, a Jaeger shipment is really good, and obviously Jaegers as like shipment in terms of like mercenary shipments, it's like an S tier shipment, right? But in terms of like training them, you're better off just going mass Karolians, because Karolians counter everything anyways.
The resident Sweden main agrees.
And you're saying this is the Swedish Jaeger specifically? Because I have
Swedish
great
Jaegers,
fun with
yes.
the mercenary Jaegers.
Yeah,
maybe they should make it a
Jaeger.
different unit. Maybe it should just be called Swedish Jaeger and use a new portrait.
I mean, they do have like the Finland Jaegers that they get when they revolt, and those have their own unique name, unit, and portrait.
Yeah,
Those
I mean,
are
just
great.
put like a blue and yellow. Just put like a blue and yellow skin on the Jaeger and say, "Oh, this is the Swedish Jaeger."
Yeah, well, I mean, they're still
And
Jaegers,
it's not-
and they still behave just
Yeah.
like Jaegers, but they're just really expensive, and it's not like Sweden has the craziest, most infinite gold income. They eventually run out of their gold income as well, which is a big issue.
Yeah, I don't think I ever make Jaegers when I'm Sweden either, so
Yeah.
I wouldn't even know. I'm not complaining. D tier is fine with me.
Alright. Let's see here. Neftenya for Ethiopia. I'm gonna put these in A, just because they're tanky. That's it. That's my entire opinion. I don't play much of the African civs, but this seems like a good unit whenever I fight against it.
I also don't have a lot of information about the Neftenya. I also don't encounter much Ethiopia or play much as Ethiopia.
Okay.
I don't feel comfortable ranking this at all because it's just such a mystery for me. But it's your tier list, so A is fine by me.
Alright. Let's see here. The Crossbowmen. This is to represent every civ's crossbows except for Malta's crossbows, because Malta have really good crossbows. I'm throwing them in C tier. And the reason I'm throwing them in C tier and not D tier is because a lot of civs do make good use of crossbows. You can make crossbows in H2 if you need them, and they do help press against a push, but for most civs, they're just a placeholder unit until you can get the actual units you want,
Agreed. It's something that you make until you're ready to transition to something else.
Now, to be fair,
And
I
it
also
serves its role well.
I also
and,
could have separated Portugal and Spanish crossbows, but I didn't. So
They get
fight
the
me.
Garden Imperial upgrades, correct?
Yes, but
Yeah.
I didn't. So fight me. Okay, let's see here. Cazadors. Cazador, I'm putting in the A tier. It's not an S tier unit, but it is A. They're fast, and they have 45% range resistance. That is their key selling point. The problem is they're squishy as fuck, and basically one fucking Hussar can wipe out 10 Cazadors without any issue. They are glass cannons of skirmishers. They super hard counter heavy infantry, and they move fast, which is what they're designed to do. Right? They pack a wall up. They have a ton of range resistance, but they are so flimsy. They're also locked till H3, which does kind of suck.
Well, that's not as much of a problem with the Portuguese.
That's very
The
good.
thing with the Portuguese is that the Exiled Prince is extremely good for them, because you get a covered wagon every age anyway. So why wait to get all those other bonuses when you can just tech up to Fortress Age more quickly and not worry about the bonuses, as well as get your Cazadors unlocked a lot more quickly. The Portuguese transition to Fortress Age extremely well. Their Dragoons are very good, their Cazadors are very good, and you can basically...
Another point in
completely-
favor for the Cazador is that its base stats are its veteran stats. It has no Age 2 stats, which means it scales harder, because when you upgrade it, it's upgrading from the veteran stats instead of the Commerce Age stats.
Yep. And it makes that transition from early to mid game like really good for Portugal.
They also have a lot of upgrades for them, and even better is that Portugal has really, really good dragoons, so the Castador pairs really well with that, which makes it a core integral part of the Portugal gameplay.
Yeah, and I mean it just reigns terror in the early Fortress Age, which is exactly what you want it to do.
Exactly.
It does its job very well and better than most other skirmishers in the same situation, and for that reason, I think it doesn't deserve anything lower than A tier.
Alright, now the State Militia from USA. I have no particular order, I'm just going around like haphazardly. I'm putting State Militia in like C tier, below like the Seton Bowmen and the Ottoman Slinger. Now when USA came out, these things were S tier, right? But they had this big nerf all of a sudden, because they were tanky, they were available in H2, and they were fast. But then they had a big nerf where they took away the tankiness, they took away the speed, and then they made them more expensive. So they just kind of, like, I don't even ship the 8 State Militia shipment if I need units in H2, I just ship 5 regulars, you know? I find very little justification for making these, especially since they are also the only food wood costing unit that USA has, so you can't pair them with anything else super easily. Which I think is
that's the only thing it has going for it. It's like if you have wood and food and you need something, State Militia, you might as well get it.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that's the only reason they're in C tier is because of their special cost. Besides that, it just doesn't seem like
if you need
I would actually give them a little more range, like normal skirmishers. I think that would be the perfect buff for them.
Yeah, well, they have a card.
Do they have more range than Strelets, or is it like the same range as Strelets too? Because they also
have
less range. It just drives me crazy.
They have 13 range. They have less range than the regular, which is the normal musketeer unit for USA.
And Russia can pull that off because Russia can get a bunch of them, but...
I think Strelets have more range. I think... Don't Strelets have normal skirmisher range? Or do they have, like, 18 or 16?
I think Russia... Oh, shoot. I don't want to spread false information, but it was my... I thought Russian Strelets had less range. It feels like they have less range than skirmishers.
There's no way they have less range than State Militia. State Militia have, like, the shortest range of, like, any skirmisher unit.
Well, I think they have the same amount of range.
13? 13? Okay, yeah, you can look that up. I'll move on while you're doing that.
Got it.
Let's see here. While we're on the topic of USA skirmishers, let's talk about the Sharpshooter. I put the Sharpshooter in the exact same ranking as the Castador. Straight up, they have they have a similar cost. They have a similar amount of HP and range resistance. You can access the Sharpshooter in H2, which is really, really nice, through the use of the long rifles card. I actually have a strategy dedicated to it, and it actually works really, really well. Additionally, the Sharpshooter has way more range. It has 22 range in H2, 23 in H3, and 24 in H4 and 5, which is just really, really solid. It doesn't need any cards to upgrade it, but it does have Continental Rangers in H3 to boost them. They also have the highest multiplier of, like, any skirmisher in the game against heavy infantry at base with a 2.5 that upgrades to 3.5. I actually did a comparison between Sharpshooters and Castadors in every age with their cards and everything. And Sharpshooters, obviously, they heavily outperform Castadors in H2 because Castadors don't exist in H2. Then they still heavily outperform them in H3. They match them in H4 and then only start lagging behind the Castador a little bit in H5. So they're just really, really good, and I think slightly better than the Castador, but overall in just about the exact same spot.
I agree. I think the Sharpshooter is a really great option for the Americans. I don't think you always use it, so not S tier.
Yes,
but
that is actually
it's
true.
A really good option.
We'll put that here
because it's a really good option. You'll see them very commonly in American armies.
Yeah. You also get 4 of them for the Kentucky age up to 3, which is what a lot of USA players take to age 3.
I have the State Militia range compared with the Skirmisher, compared with the Strelet. State Militia range is 13, Strelet is 14, and Skirmisher is 20. So they have even less range than the Strellet.
They do get
Yeah,
17 range with the long rifles card, but that requires a whole ass card, and it still isn't skirmisher range.
It's frustrating to play with state militia, and I don't know why you would do it. I feel like you're just torturing yourself.
Okay, USA's Owl Hoot, just B tier. Why? Why would you make the Owl Hoot when you have the sharpshooter? Just straight up. That's all there is to it. The Owl Hoot is really good if you're going for outlaws, but like, even then, you're probably just better making cowboys. You know, there's very... Owl Hoots are good at their job, but they also have a poor firing animation, and there's just... I find very little reason to use them. They also don't have... They don't gain benefit from too many upgrade cards, either. Well, they gain benefit from as many as the sharpshooter, I guess, but still.
I haven't seen much of the Owl Hoot. I think I saw them in one game. They did okay.
Like, if you're going...
People don't use them very commonly.
If you're going for outlaws as USA, your three options are gunslingers, cowboys, and owl hoots. And of the two, you're most likely to make cowboys first and maybe a couple owl hoots if you need them, and that's about it.
Cowboys I've seen. Cowboys looked very fun. Owl hoots are like, oh, they're an outlaw unit.
Yeah, that's exactly.
I guess
their big claim to fame is over the Renegado is that they have a charge attack that has area of effect, but that's about it. Okay, let's talk about the Malta crossbow. Malta have really good crossbows. They have like the best crossbows in the game, as a matter of fact. They get Royal Guard. They have 30% upgrades in cards. They have the Steel Bolts card that allows them to get a higher multiplier against heavy infantry, and they also get plus 2 HP for every single shipment you send. So they're just really good crossbows from the from the Second Age all the way through the Imperial. Like, even in the Imperial Age, you can just spam these out like mad and trade pretty effectively with pretty much anything you fight. They're really good. I'm putting them in the A tier. Over the long run.
I find them better than their Longbowmen. I find them better than their Cassadors that they can get. To the point where I'm beginning to wonder if you should even send light infantry tongues as Malta. Like, the Crossbowmen, they may not like win every time, but the fact is you mass them a lot because they're so cheap.
Yeah.
And
Malta has really good wood gather rates, so they don't even mind that they cost wood.
Exactly. It's the fact of the matter is they aren't great units, but they trade cost effectively.
They are the greatest of their type, of the crossbow type. You know, they are as good as a crossbow gets.
Exactly. They are the best crossbow, which makes them trade really well in terms of resource cost. That's what I'm trying to say.
Mm-hmm. Now, on that topic, let's talk about the Cassador. I'm going to put them in the B tier. Probably right next to the Gurkha. Now, the Malta Cassadors, they have one thing going for them, I think, that actually would provide you a reason for using them over the Crossbowmen. And that is that they are a food gold costing unit. And if you lean heavily into the tongue units, which is absolutely doable as Malta, Cassadors are really, really good for this because they cost food gold, just like every other one of your order units, as well as your good heavy infantry in the form of the Hospitaller and Sentinel. The Malta Cassador does offer something a little bit different from the Crossbowmen, just because it provides it provides a skirmisher that you can still use if you have a different economy than just your crossbows. And I think there's really valid reason for that, to put that in there, you know.
I agree. With the Maltese Cassador, it fills a resource production spot that the Crossbowman just doesn't give you. If you have extra gold, having the Cassador could be good. If you want to save your wood for something else, the Cassador can be good. But you know, you have to think, what is my special unit as Malta? And you know, it can fit in the Maltese lineup if like your special unit is something else, because you're not going to make the Caçadores Malta and then it's like, oh, this is going to be my super unit that's going to carry the game. This is going to be like something that like stays back and goes in whenever it needs to.
Yeah.
While your like cannons punch down the enemy or something, or your hoop throwers, or fire throwers, I guess they call them.
Yeah. Fire throwers.
With that, could we rate the fire throwers? Unless you have something else to.
Yeah, let's finish off the Malta Skirms. Fire throwers are just really, really good. I think they are Malta's best skirmisher type unit, and I think they are just solid top of A, maybe even S tier. I'm gonna put them in the S tier personally.
I'm gonna put them in the S tier too. I think they're a little overtuned right now. I think it's a great idea to have a light infantry grenadier type unit. I think that's interesting, and that's not something we've really seen before.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why there's such a problem right now. It's something that we haven't really seen before, and people aren't really sure how to deal with yet.
Well, they do, you just
now.
deal
I
with
mean,
them the
you know
same
how to
way
deal with them with
as-
hand cavalry, but it's
it's hand cavalry and artillery is what it is.
Yeah.
But what makes this unit so good is that it takes the one strength of the grenadier unit, which is the area of effect siege splash, and makes it really good, because then you have lower base damage and HP than the grenadier, but then you introduce the multipliers against heavy infantry and the multipliers against goons because it's a skirmisher type, right? And then you introduce the fact that because it's got grenadier, it's also really good against buildings because it has a long range attack against buildings that has a multiplier against buildings for some reason. I don't know why they didn't just increase the siege damage if they wanted it to do extra damage to buildings.
I think it would be an interesting thing if they... here's an interesting way they could nerf it. What if it didn't do bonus damage to buildings? What if it was only, like, for units only, and then if it, like, it attacked a fort, it would have problems?
I would argue
I like
that
the idea of
I
a
don't think they
grenadier
should be
that
nerfed.
can clear the field, but can't, like, take the base.
I
think
would
that would be really interesting.
I personally don't think they should be nerfed. I think they're like one of Malta's best units. They're definitely S tier. It doesn't mean they need to be nerfed. They're just a really good skirmisher unit, you know. Malta can have that. So what? But they have a lot of upgrades. They have two really important upgrades. The first is flamethrowers in Age 2. If there was to be a nerf to, if there was going to be a nerf to fire throwers, I would say flamethrowers is probably the place to nerf it. Flamethrowers gives them a charge attack that they can use in melee that just kind of cooks anything nearby with 5 area of effect. And it allows them to essentially fight even in melee, to at least temporarily. And you encounter these problems where people are like, oh, let me throw like 3 husks on those dudes, and like those husks will definitely do a really good job and take down the fire thrower mass. But if they have the flamethrowers, those husks are going to get cooked, and you're probably only going to have one left, and it'll have low HP.
And that's why they should be countered by buildings and artillery a little more, which means I think that they shouldn't get a bonus against buildings. I think they shouldn't get a bonus against artillery.
Well, they don't get a bonus against artillery. They have a negative multiplier against artillery.
Right.
But yeah, I think if you were to nerf this unit, it would be with the flamethrower. Now, in addition, once they get to Age 4, they get access to the rocket card. Now, rockets is such a good card for the fire throwers. It gives them a 22 range attack, and if you use that extra long range attack, it changes their heavy infantry multiplier to an infantry multiplier, which means that this unit is your all-in-one anti-skirm, anti-musket, anti-goon unit, and it is so good because of that. It is just it has really good siege. It is an S tier unit, just without a doubt. Hello, Prez?
I agree. I've said a couple of times it's S tier, it's a little overtuned, and they should think about taking something away from it that'll make it countered a little better.
Alright, cool. The Pavasir. Chase, I want your opinion on this one if you're still here. Where would you put the Pavasir? Top of C? Bottom of B?
Might not be here.
I guess
The Pavasir is not B tier.
Got it. Top of C.
I feel like it's bugged too, because sometimes I try to like attack move with it, and they just... I mean,
Well,
it happens with all units, but I feel like it happens with the Cavalier more. I don't know if I'm getting like unlucky or something.
I'm inclined to put them in the bottom of B, only for the fact that with the June patch that's coming out, they are getting a card in Age 4 that's going to serve as their Guard and Imperial upgrade.
That's good.
Which I think is really, really nice, because it'll allow you to use them in more ages, and in addition to that, they of course are going to have the ability. They have the ability to change their resistance as you need, which is very, very good. Obviously, it's still not the best skirmisher out there. It's definitely bottom of B if it goes anywhere in B. But yeah, it's definitely got some really good use to it, and it's pretty tanky compared to a normal crossbow unit. So yeah, I think bottom of B with the June patch taken into account, I think bottom of B is fair.
I think it does need to be tweaked a little bit.
Yes, I think it needs to be tweaked.
I'm hoping the June patch helps it out. I sometimes have trouble using this. I know it has different bonuses depending on what mode it is, but I'm never really clear about what those bonuses are.
I don't think it's different bonuses.
Maybe you can...
It's different resistances, not bonuses.
Well, a resistance is a bonus. That's kind of what I meant.
Oh, okay, yeah. It's siege damage. It's siege resistance and stagger, melee damage in melee mode, and range damage in volley mode.
Kind of hard to remember.
Well, I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory if you think about, if my enemy's in melee, go into melee. If my enemy has cannons, I probably want to be in stagger mode anyway, so go into stagger.
Yeah, stagger mode's intuitive.
I think they're all intuitive.
Are you still talking about Pavasiers?
Yes.
Yep.
They're not great.
Well, with the guard upgrade, I want to talk about the Bersaglieri transition again.
Okay, so
maybe with the guard upgrade,
yeah, that's
be...
coming, and it's in their present form. They're not fantastic.
Yes.
I'm
taking into account their guard substitute card that they're gonna get with the June patch.
Which again, you still have to get to Age 4 to begin with, so I don't know how good that is.
So do you think that a guard upgrade will make the Bersaglieri better if we're taking the June patch into account? Because a big problem you said is that transition to Age 4, we can't get to Age 4. Well, what if your Pavasier mass could get upgraded to guard while you transfer and you start training Bersaglieri in Age 4? Do you think that might make Bersaglieri better? And if so, does that mean they deserve to be up a tier?
They're still just an Age 4 locked unit, and that's just not great.
I see.
That's really my biggest issue with them. My biggest fight by far.
I haven't really played a ton of Italy games where I've got to Age 4 to either send the Pavasier upgrade when it actually becomes a thing, or to train Bersaglieri. So take that with a grain of salt, I suppose.
Alright, now the Bandito, Mexico's equivalent of the Aleut. I'm just placing it in the same place as the Aleut, straight up. There's no reason to put it anywhere other than C.
I don't know enough about the Bandito to give a proper rating on this. I don't see it much, if at all.
Its charge attack is much shorter range, but it does siege and has a little bit more splash than the Aleut. But other than that, there's very little reason to take them, because you're probably just if you're doing outlaws, you're probably just gonna make Quattreros, or more likely, you're gonna be making filibusters. You know.
Yep.
Let's see here. On the topic of Mexico, let's talk about the Saltador. Saltador, B tier unit. It's not the craziest unit in the world. It's an Age 2 skirmisher that does have stealth, which is pretty crazy, you know. But they're also expensive. And really, that's about it.
That's kind of my impression as well.
They're just a B tier skirmisher.
They're an option. They're there.
Yeah, I originally thought these units were stupid.
It's good to have the option. It's good to have the option to have skirmishers with Mexico, and you see them pulled out from time to time.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
when they're there, they do the skirmisher role very well.
Mm-hmm.
So I have some respect for them, but it's not what I'm fearing is going to attack me when I see an enemy Mexico player.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about the Chukanu and Arquebusier. I'm inclined to put both of these in the B tier, honestly. Chukanu are really good because they're available in Age 2, and that's just a really good bonus in general, and they're even like a really good crossbow for age 2 as well. Now, I previously placed both of these in C tier because they came with the banner armies. However, China seems to be able to mass banner armies a lot easier than they used to before, so they got that going for them, and I'm going to be a little bit softer on banner army units this time around, but I still don't think they're the best units out there. The Arquebusier is literally just like standardskirmisher.com, you know, and it's still a little bit worse than one, and they're just going to be your core army units, and that's really all there is to them.
China is weird to do the skirmishers for.
Because at the same time, their skirmishers are nothing special, but like you're just going to win because you have so many of them.
No one else has like a mechanic like a banner army with China.
Yeah, exactly.
So this is always going to be weird. Like, are you going to see Chukanu with Keshiks? So do we rate Chukanu with Keshiks differently from Chukanu with pikemen?
No, we're rating Chukanu as a unit. Just straight up.
Have to take the Changdao swordsmen into account because we know
we do have to take into account. We do have to take into account what you can train them with in this.
Yeah. So they're unlike anything on this list, and it's really strange to give them a rating in a vacuum because you aren't going to see them in a vacuum. You aren't going to see mass Chukanu only in a game.
And I think probably one of the biggest issues with Chukanu and really all China units that's probably going to prevent me from putting any individual China unit above the B tier is if you need Chukanu, well, fuck you, you're going to get Chukanu and pikes, you know? Your enemy made a whole bunch of musketeers and you need skirmishers fast. Fuck you, you're going to have half the skirmishers and the rest are going to be pikes, or the rest are going to be steps, you know? And I think that's I think the biggest issue I have with banner armies. In addition, you have to have the resources for the entire batch before you can start queuing it, which I think is a huge negative.
Well, you can solve that with like just overdoing the resource crates, which I generally do when I play a big. Well, there's like only 2 civs, and it's like Russia and China, but it's a little off topic now.
Yeah. I think the point is I think B is a good spot for both the Chukanu and the Arquebusier because they're both core integral units to China, but they still have their issues.
They're extremely strong because China is extremely strong.
Yes.
Not because they as units are extremely strong.
Yes.
China is an overpowered civilization, but it's not because their units are any good, which is interesting. You know?
Yeah, it is a little odd. Right.
So, I agree. B tier.
Obuscans! I think I'm going to put them in the A tier. I think that's a reasonable place to put them. I think they're a little awkward because you want to pair them with either Janissaries or cavalry archers, but you know, Janissaries are better paired with great bombards, and you have to have the whole ass artillery foundry up in order to get them, just like the fire thrower. And they don't have the area of effect. They do have a lot of base damage. They can just shred artillery. But if they don't have like they don't have the spit roast ability that fire throwers get for melee. So if like even 1 or 2 cavalry units comes upon your like small 5 to 8 Obusguns, you can just say goodbye to your Obusguns. They're fucked. You know. They also have really low siege compared to their closest equivalent, which is the fire thrower. All that being said, they're still really strong. They pack a huge punch. They can siege from far away too, which is really nice. And if an Ottoman player on my team says he wants to mass Obusguns, by all means, you know, I'm going to do my best to protect your Obusguns. That's going to be my existence in life.
Obusguns are a glass cannon.
Yes.
They blow your opponent away, but they'll get destroyed if you let your opponent close in on them. Very good unit. Useless if your opponent can close the distance.
Yeah, pretty much.
So, A tier, I would agree with that. Because it forces your opponent to react in a very specific way to counter them.
Mm-hmm.
more than other skirmishers do.
Alright, next is the Desert Archer. This is for both Hausa and Ethiopia. I just threw them together in one because fuck you, it's my list. A tier. Spoiler alert: a lot of the last units are probably going to be A or B, and A is going to have a lot of units in this list. Desert Archers are just stupid good. They have a ton of. They can either fire quickly like a Yumi at short range, or fire slowly at long range like a Longbowman. They are the best of both worlds. I think I'm going to put them above the Longbowmen for that reason, actually. Above the Desert Archer, probably, too. They're just really powerful outlaw units. You can get if you get a huge mass of them, you are shredding everything in your path, and there is nothing your enemy can do to stop you. The biggest issue with the Desert Archer is that they are tied to outlaw. They are tied to the outlaw tag, and as such, you're restricted in how many things you can pair them with from your watchtower. And they're also very heavy on the pop.
Yeah, the heavy on the pop is like the big thing. It's like you have to make like an outlaw civilization in order with an outlaw deck in order to make them, work really well. Mm-hmm. I don't see them mixed in with normal armies too much.
No, you basically just see people go pure Desert Archer.
Exactly.
Because they don't need them against anything with anything else.
I feel like the Fulani Archer's better, and I think you do put that there. But it's another powerful option.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's just a solid power play.
No complaints here. A tier.
Now this is the Marine/USA Minutemen. A tier. There's going to be a lot of these. There's a lot of A tiers in this list. USA's I'm counting these as like a unit because I'm counting all the Zouave types as skirmishers as well, just because where else am I gonna put them? They fight well against infantry and they lose to cavalry. They're a skirmisher. They even share most of the tags. The Marine is a very, very strong unit. They have high siege. They don't lose to skirmishers in firefights. They can be kited, but you can get a range upgrade with long rifles that makes it a lot more difficult. Yeah, these units are just powerhouses. They have high stats and they're really difficult to counter because not many things have direct multipliers against them. And one of the two things that does, artillery, also gets countered by the Marines, so you can just march a Marine up to enemy artillery and just go bonk and it dies.
Yeah, it's very interesting because of the way you get them too. It's like you're allowed to spawn them once in a while, very quickly, like the Strellet. Mm-hmm. So that's like
they are like the most
their deployment speed.
Yeah, once you get to H4, you can get the Minutemen Company's card, and you put them out in batches of 16. They only cost 25 food and coin apiece. They're stupid cheap.
That's probably if you think about that, that's probably the biggest batch of units outside of like home city shipment cards that you can get.
Yeah, pretty much.
And you can get them pretty much instantly. Like what 2 seconds to call Minutemen?
Yep.
Like it's really
5
good.
seconds. It's 5 seconds.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think very good.
Now the Papal Zouave, on the other hand, I'm probably gonna put in B or maybe the top of C, for the strict purpose of that they're just locked till age 4, and that sucks. However, they do. I think personally that they're better than Besiglaries just because they just fight well against everything and they don't die immediately to cavalry. They also get the Papal Arsenal. The Papal Arsenal card also gives them a charge attack, which is really nice. Something of note is that you can only get them from the Basilica, which I think might actually dictate putting them in C tier with the Besiglary.
And I was about to make that point. The problem is you just can't mass these things up very well, and they affect your home city shipments. With the Bersaglieri, you can mass them up. You can make a giant infantry mass that's going to be stunning your opponents.
I think that's a fair point.
The are great, but they're just going to be something that fills out your army. It's not going to be something that you can rely on, really.
That's true.
With the Bersaglieri, you can mass them, and they're going to be very integral part of your army when the fighting begins. The Papal Zouave is just going to, be something that, maybe gives you a little bit of an edge.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to see an army of, 50 Papal Zouaves, ever.
Yeah.
Whereas with Bersaglieri, maybe you'll get a whole company of them.
Yeah, that's very true. That's a fair point, I think. I think with that in mind, I'll put them down below, right around the Otonton Slinger.
And we've been giving a lot of points to civs that can deploy their infantry rapidly. That's why the Strelit's an S tier. That's why the Marines are a high tier. The fact is they are bottlenecked so badly by the Basilica's mechanics that you just can't justify putting them in a higher tier than C.
The Schiavone, I think, is top of C or B tier. Just because, unlike the Papal Zouave, which is barred by both the Basilica and H4, the Schiavone is in H2. And it has multipliers against both skirmishers and heavy infantry, which is really nice. This is your haha fuck your pike bow combo unit, You also get, I think, 7 of them in a shipment from the Basilica, which is really good.
Yes, and it's a lot better than the 4 Papal Zouaves you get from the other shipment.
They're also attached to the Croatian company, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Right, but that's not as much.
Yeah,
so.
it's still a solid shipment that you can send that also comes with Cravats. So I have a lot of respect for the Schiavone. I think I might even put them in B tier.
Yeah, and 7 military units in a shipment, that's something that's good. You'd expect 7 military units in a shipment to be from the home city. I know we already talked about the Papal Zouave, but going back to it, think of what shipments are there that only send 4 infantry units from the home city that are really good.
That is a fair point. And not to mention the Basilica shipments take an entire minute to send instead of the usual 40 seconds.
And once again, going back to the Schiavone, God, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly.
You're probably not. Don't worry about it.
But yeah, 7 units from a home city shipment in Age 2, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. The only other thing that gets that much infantry in a home city shipment in Age 2 is 8 crossbowmen, or 13 strelets, which is double the number, but that's unique to Russia.
Yeah.
But it's a solid amount of units that you can get repeatedly. I have some respect for the Schiavone in a way that I don't for the Zouave.
Yeah, that's true. The Zouave is Papal, by the way, just off topic, the Papal, Suave attack, it does 96 damage. It's fucking huge.
Yeah, but you need something in front of the Zouaves to make sure that they don't take the damage, and you need to make sure they don't get flanked, and, I feel like your Zouaves... I feel like the point of the Zouave is just like the Marine is to be on the front and be tanking for the rest of your military. You think so, huh? Yes, that's how I've always treated the Marines. I'm just like, oh, I need a lot of HP and damage to be on the front line. Poof, Marines, Right. That's what I do. And when I think of light infantry, I usually think of fire and retreat. Mm-hmm. But Zouaves and Marines don't necessarily do that because they have musketeer range. Except for the Marines, which can gain benefit from long rifles. Looking at the list, the Arumi swordsman certainly doesn't fire and retreat. It's an all-in sort of skirmisher. Yeah, I guess you could say. Anyways, that's gonna do it today, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you enjoyed the list. I hope you enjoyed President's commentary with me. And have a great day, and goodbye. Thank you very much for watching, ladies and gentlemen. This was, as ever, a ton of fun to make. If you enjoyed the video, please do consider subscribing. It really helps the channel out, and have a great day.